The need for speed.
So, what did you guys think of the forms work we did today?
It was a real eye-opener for me. Well, I already knew that I needed a lot of work on my technique and everything, but now I know a lot of like what exactly I need to fix and how I can fix it, and that was just a really big help.
Yeah, I think personally, like I've been looking forward to something like this for like a long time. For those of you who have been following the activities of, you know, our Shin Kwan group, but I mean the larger Shin Kwan group, not just this group. I mean, you guys know about like, you know, that, well, you were there for the little, like, you know, training day event, what we called it. I mean, like, I wanted it to be something like this, but obviously, like, my forms technician knowledge was nowhere near Master Pearson's. I mean, obviously, but like, I really want that, especially for our instructors and the people who teach camp, because as Master Pearson said earlier today, the way he prefaced it was that, you know, people, you know, like our own, you know, assistant instructors or instructors, you know, that don't have a uniform way of teaching, you know, forms, or aren't getting into being as detailed as they should. And I really think that, like, you know, especially people who teach at our camp, like, I want to get it to the point where there's, like, you know,
Uniform.
well, in a sense, like, I want to say, like, you know, compliance meetings or compliance seminars. I mean, that sounds like such a officious word to use, but I mean, you get the idea that, like, you know, instructors of our school should all be on the same page with, you know, Master Pearson and, like, you know, the Shin Kwan way of doing these forms, so that we all run them the same way. Our color belts all learn them the same way. Like, you know, not just the same technique, but also the depth of the technique. Like, you know, people are aware of, like, you know, how our feet should be and all these sorts of things, and that's just all integrated into our training.
Yeah. Also, a lot of that stuff you just have to model, right? So, like, it's good, even if you're not going to teach that. Like, I wouldn't necessarily, like, take a group of young color belts and go through all the ins and outs of foot placement and stance, whatever. But, like, if you're doing it, and you know how to do it right, then they're going to pick up on that whether you say it or not. Yeah. Sometimes. Yeah, you know, and if we're all doing it right, then at least that's another level of consistency that's really important.
And it's just important to make sure that one instructor's way of teaching doesn't conflict with another instructor's way of teaching from the same school.
Because that's just confusing.
Yeah, just students. For like a color belt or even like a black belt or upper belt, because it's just, it just confuses students and they don't know really what to do, what to make of it. And
I totally agree with you, Master Schaefer. Like, not all of the details that we covered are at all appropriate for, you know, certain age groups. But
you should know it.
Well, certainly, like, we should all know it as instructors. But I really want our class to get to a point where at least, you know, students who are 12 and up or purple belt or above, they're at least aware of these finer details and are making efforts to model them. And, you know, because right now, well, just like right now, not as many students are aware of them as I think we could have. But, you know, it is catching on more and more. I think, you know, something we've been working on a lot in the summer camps is being sure that the upper belts are aware of the expectations in forms. You know, because a lot of them haven't been in class in like a bunch of months, and, you know, they just, you know, forget stuff. So, you know, we just have to be sure that we keep communicating the expectation, and that, you know, all of our instructors are communicating the same expectation, so that, you know, like, someone doesn't get there and like really form technician someone, and then like the next instructor is like, oh yeah, that's fine, don't worry about that, you know.
It's also good, I mean, we wouldn't, it's always beneficial to have your technique picked apart like that, and we wouldn't have time necessarily in like a regular black belt class or whatever to get that sort of one-on-one time and attention, and so that's really helpful. But as the person sitting and watching that, it's a little bit passive for my taste. Like, one of the things I love about this time is like that it's super active, and we go from one thing to the next to the next to the next, and we learn, like, we pack in so much, and it's super active. And so I missed that a little bit this afternoon when we were going through that, because I felt, not that I wasn't learning through observation, but my butt was falling asleep.
Yeah, I don't know. That's where I felt like I found I could not write notes fast enough.
Yeah, that's
for
true.
like all the details. Like I'd have to like it's like because like you have to write down a lot for just like the correct way to do one certain technique, and then like but the next technique would be being discussed, and I'm like trying to catch up.
Yeah. I find myself like writing all the stuff to know for the technique or one of the techniques, and then I look up and he's doing another technique.
Right.
Oh no.
And then like when we get done with the form, like all right, I need just like 5 minutes just to catch up with like notes alone before we can move on to the next form.
Another thing that's really interesting though is I don't know if you guys have, but I've had the opportunity to we used to do this kind of thing like a lot whenever there was like a small number of people in class or whatever. So I've had the opportunity to do this type of thing before, and yet everything that he pointed out to me today has never been pointed out to me before. So it's sort of like, I don't know, like there's always,
something
it's true, don't shake your head. Yeah. It's true, okay, at least maybe not everything, but like the thing about my hand turning in a chamber, and the thing about the way I turn, leaning forward as opposed to leaning back, those two things I've never heard critiqued before. So it's just like the point that like there's always, it's layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. Like there's always something that you can improve, and that's really nice.
Sure, and you know, just like you were saying before, like you don't have time in a normal class period to communicate all of this, but the hope is that for a student who is periodically attending classes, that over a certain period of time, like the entirety of this information can get communicated to them, that people are coaching them on this sort of stuff. And the best way to do that is to have all of the instructors' knowledge and ability in this to be at a certain level where everyone can consistently coach people in a uniform way. And coach is a very strange word to use in this situation, because as martial artists, we're not coaches for our students. We're instructors. It's a very different sort of relationship. But for a verb for just helping them out and critiquing them and helping them train, helping them on their journey towards wherever they want to go in martial arts.
You definitely want to break bad habits early before they really start to form, because just something as simple as me holding my fist with my thumb out on the outside instead.
Don't advertise this.
Yeah, that's something you really shouldn't know.
I know, but no one actually told me that, and I always did it like this when I started.
Yeah. Well.
And
I mean, I think something that is.
Because you were a weird kid. I'm just kidding. You were a great student when you were little.
Yeah. Well, I think that our just the history of not only the people in this group, but like our school as a whole is interesting. Just because when our full-time school had to move, some people had a bunch of years off where they didn't necessarily like forget things as much as just like they didn't have someone telling them there to do things, or they got out of practice. I mean, like
until that big test.
Right. Well, yeah, and until that big test. But even like right now, we have students returning to our school who we haven't seen for 3 or 4 years, and they haven't been practicing for 3 or 4 years. And it's great that they're coming back now, but also like before, they were youth students. They were like 9 or 10 years old, but now they're like teenage or more adult students who are ready to handle higher caliber information. Yeah. And so it's sort of, I think that's a very unique, school climate, or a very unique sort of situation that doesn't come up a lot. But I think that everything's moving in the correct direction. That more people are coming back. People are getting back into practice and getting back to where they were, but also growing beyond it. So.
All right, let's be done with this topic.
All right.